Once upon a time in the heart of Africa, there lived a young woman named Amaka. She was set to marry a wealthy man named Chief Simon. But on the day of their wedding, Amaka ran away. Chief Simon was very angry and quickly sent his men to look for her. Amaka hid in a poor neighborhood. She cut off her long hair and wore old dirty clothes she found in the trash. She looked like a poor beggar, and people passing by felt sorry for her. One day, a kind young man named John saw her and said, "You must be cold. Let me buy you a cup of tea." His voice was warm and kind, and when Amaka looked up, she saw that he was very handsome with neatly trimmed beards. She pretended not to be interested in him, but she was grateful for his help. She agreed to the tea because staying outside was dangerous. Meanwhile, Chief Simon promised a big reward of 20 million naira to anyone who found Amaka. As John and Amaka sat in a small tea shop, the TV showed a picture of Amaka, calling her the runaway bride, and announcing the reward. John saw the news and smiled, saying, 20 million naira for finding a runaway bride? That money could change my life. Amaka wrapped herself in her scarf, hoping he wouldn't recognize her. Luckily, he didn't. They went to a small rundown cafe. "This is a nice place. I've never been to one like this," Amaka said, smiling and trying to act like she lived in the slums. Suddenly, John noticed her gold necklace, which she had forgotten to take off. "How did a poor girl get such a beautiful necklace?" he asked. Amaka was scared she would be discovered, so she lied. "I got this necklace from my late parents," she said. John believed her, but then Amaka saw Chief Simon's men coming towards them. They were searching the slums for her. Amaka had nowhere to run, so she clung to John. He thought she was crying and gently hugged her back. Amaka stayed as calm as she could and waited for the men to leave. When they finally did, she gently pushed John away. "Thank you for your help. I'm sorry, but I have to go now. Please take care," she said, but John wanted to help her more. He thought she would go back to the cold street. Before she could leave, he held her hand and said, "Hey, what's up? I want to help you." Amaka realized it was too risky to stay on the streets, so she admitted she had no place to go. John, being kind and naive, offered her a place to stay without thinking twice. But Amaka was scared of what would happen if Chief Simon found them. Amaka accepted John's offer to live together in his old, shabby apartment. While John was taking a shower, Amaka decided to snoop around. Under a pile of trash, she discovered a bundle of money and a photo of Chief Simon's restaurant. Amaka was surprised and confused. Did John work for Chief Simon? Feeling uneasy, Amaka grabbed some money and ran away. She spent the night in a hotel and then went to a pawn shop to sell her necklace. With the money, she bought tickets to another city. But when she arrived at a cheap hotel, Chief Simon's thugs were already waiting for her. "We knew you'd come here to hide. We're taking you to the boss," one of them said, threatening her. Amaka couldn't shake off her confusion. She wondered if John had betrayed her, leading the thugs to her location. But deep down, she couldn't believe that John would do such a thing. Just when the thugs were about to force Amaka into their car, a familiar voice rang out. It was John, bravely coming to her rescue. With swift determination, John fought off the thugs and managed to pull Amaka away from danger. When John succeeded in defeating Simon's thugs, John turned to face Amaka. Amaka wanted to thank him for saving her, but before she could say anything, John pushed her against the wall and demanded answers. "Who are you? You made me trust you, and then you disappeared with my money," John said with a mix of frustration and hurt in his voice. Amaka looked into John's kind, bright eyes, feeling very guilty. She knew she had to tell him the truth. Amaka took a deep breath and poured out her heart to John. "Those were people who worked for my fiancé," she began. "My father owed him $1 million, and he demanded the debt be paid with me. He treated me like a maid, and his cruelty became unbearable. That's why I ran away on our wedding day." As Amaka finished her story, she saw the pain in John's eyes. But before she could say anything else, John's face was covered in agony and he collapsed to the ground. Amaka rushed to John's side, her heart filled with worry. It turned out that Chief Simon's thugs had managed to hurt John during their struggle. With tears in her eyes, Amaka gently cradled John's head, hoping he would be all right. But little did she know their troubles were far from over. As John regained consciousness at home, Amaka felt relieved but still worried about his injury. She suggested calling a doctor, but John whispered that he didn't have enough money. "You have a whole box of money," Amaka said, reaching out to get some cash, but he stopped her. "I've been saving it for years to get my life back," he explained. Amaka listened intently as John revealed his past as a successful restaurant owner. John had been framed by a rich man and lost his business. Amaka's heart sank when she realized that the same rich man he spoke of was her abusive fiancé, Chief Simon. Despite Amaka's sadness, she offered to check John's wound. He took off his shirt, revealing his muscular body, and Amaka couldn't help but admire his strength and resilience of his attractive body. As John noticed the admiration, he leaned closer, his eyes filled with passion and tenderness. Before Amaka could react, he kissed her softly, sending a shiver down her spine. That night, as they shared a moment of intimacy, Amaka knew she couldn't keep hiding the truth from John any longer. But before she could gather the courage to confess, their peaceful night was shattered by the sound of breaking glass. The thugs had tracked them down and burst into the apartment, followed by Chief Simon himself. His words cut through the air like a knife. "You ran away from a wedding and ended up in the bed of a failed restaurant manager?" he mocked Amaka. John was really mad when he saw his enemy in front of him. Chief Simon teased Amaka again. "Remember, your parents gave you to me to pay their debt. Would you rather see your dad get hurt?" His words hurt a lot, but Chief Simon wasn't done. He looked at John with a mean look. "You stole my bride. For that you will pay with everything you have left, including yourself," he threatened. With a cruel command, Chief Simon ordered his thugs to drag Amaka into the waiting car. Meanwhile, he planned to set fire to John's apartment with him still inside. Amaka felt really scared, knowing she had to keep John safe from Chief Simon's anger, no matter what. But in that scary moment, she understood that their love was going to be tested like never before. She cried a lot as she begged Chief Simon to not hurt John. "I promise to be a good wife and never leave again," she yelled, sounding really desperate. "Please, just let him go." Chief Simon stopped and thought about what she said. After thinking for a bit, he said he wouldn't hurt John, but only if she agreed to one thing. "You have to come back with me and promise to never run away again," he said, sounding really harsh and unfriendly to Amaka. With a heavy heart, Amaka nodded, knowing she had no other choice if she wanted to save John from harm. But deep down she vowed to find a way to protect him, no matter the cost. The fate of their love hung in the balance, and as the sun set on that fateful day, she prayed that we would find a way to overcome the challenges that lay ahead. Simon grabbed Amaka's arm and took her home in his car. Back at his big house, Simon started getting ready for another wedding. He wanted to marry Amaka again, even though Amaka didn't want to. Amaka felt really scared and sad. She didn't want to marry Simon, but he made her wear a wedding dress. Even though she felt trapped, she knew she had to stay strong, but she couldn't control her tears. On their wedding day, Amaka walked down the altar alone in a quiet ceremony. She tried not to cry as she imagined what life would be like with Simon. Amaka saw her parents looking sad and helpless just like her, trapped by Simon. Just as they were about to get married, the church door flew open. John came in with a bag. John walked towards them and Amaka's heart raced. Tears streamed down her face. "I've been saving money for years to start over, but I'll give it all to you if you let her go," John said when he got close enough. Chief Simon looked into the bag and said, "I've done worse for less. Good offer, it's a deal. With this money I'll find a new bride who's much better than her." But then John laughed and grabbed a microphone. Suddenly the police came in and arrested Simon. It turned out that John could prove he owned the restaurant Simon had been threatening him about. They needed evidence, but Simon's words were enough. Simon went to jail for blackmailing and trying to force Amaka into marriage. Amaka watched everything happen, feeling like her life was finally getting better. It felt like a dream. "It's a good thing you're already dressed up. I want you to be my wife," John said, wiping away her tears. He knelt down and asked her to marry him. Of course, Amaka said yes. She found someone who was willing to risk everything for her. Being with John made Amaka feel brave and strong. She realized that being loved by John gave her strength, and loving him gave her courage. This is the end of the story. What lesson did you learn from this story? Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.